Imagine a peaceful nation, known for centuries of neutrality, nestled quietly in the heart of Scandinavia. Its diplomatic corridors silent, its defense minimal. Now, picture that same nation, in the blink of an eye, transforming into a formidable military power ready to strike at its neighbors. How did this peaceful dream turn into a calculated threat? On November 25, 2025, in the icy depths of the Baltic Sea, something unprecedented stirs. The calm waters conceal a looming nightmare for Russia's most secretive ambitions. Sweden, long a figure of calm diplomacy, has shifted gears. No longer is it a passive shield protecting its borders. Now, it's a predator, ready to strike deep into Russian territory, extending a deadly 2,000 kilometers into its heartland. Leaked reports from Stockholm have sent shockwaves through military circles worldwide. It's clear, Sweden has abandoned traditional defense and embraced a hostile doctrine, preemptive strikes. Their plan isn't just defensive anymore, it's offensive on a scale never seen since the Cold War. Sabotage, missile strikes, and naval blockade, these are no longer just concepts, but actionable strategies. Sources reveal that Stockholm plans to decimate Russian military hubs, command centers, and critical infrastructure before any missile leaves Russian soil. Their goal? To eliminate threats at their root, rather than respond to them. How? By encircling Putin's empire from the north, drowning it in the sea, deploying ghost submarines that evade radar and sonar, silent predators waiting to strike. Adding to this, they have assembled a fleet of 150 jets, financed with frozen Russian assets, to impose a sky-wide blockade. This is no mere defense, it's an invasion from the air, with cruise missiles aimed at Moscow's power centers. Instead of axes, the Vikings have now armed themselves with missile technology capable of extinguishing the Russian capital's lights. Central to this transformation is a strategic shift unseen since the Cold War era. The Swedish defense leadership now plans to push the attack deep into enemy territory. Advanced long-range missile systems, capable of reaching 2,000 kilometers, are already in the pipeline. These weapons will target not only St. Petersburg but also Moscow, the Euro logistics hubs, and strategic airbases, paralyzing Russia's military inside its own borders. This radical approach is driven by the political mind of Defense Minister Paul Johnson, confirmed by sources like Reuters. The message is clear: waiting for Russia's expanding capabilities would be suicidal. Instead, Sweden is acting decisively, eliminating threats at their origin. But the threat doesn't stop above the waterline. Beneath the icy Baltic, Sweden's engineering marvels are quietly revolutionizing underwater warfare. Their new A-26 Blekinge-class submarines, non-nuclear, stealthy giants, are designed to hunt and sabotage. No reactor noise, weeks underwater, silent as ghosts. Picture these submarines prowling the shallow Baltic depths, just 60 meters above the seabed, invisible to Russian sonar. Their secret? An air-independent propulsion system, burning liquid oxygen and diesel, allowing them to glide undetected for over 18 days. Light as a feather, yet deadly, they strike silently, waiting for the perfect moment. Their most terrifying feature? A 1.5-meter multi-purpose portal at the bow built to deploy torpedoes, infiltrate special forces, or sabotage seabed pipelines and cables. A living nightmare for Russia's undersea infrastructure. The implications extend beyond water. Sweden is teaming up with Poland to turn the Baltic into an impregnable steel trap. Poland plans to purchase 3 of these stealth subs, part of their Orca program, to block Russia's naval fleet in Kaliningrad. This isn't just a missile deal, it's a strategic chokehold, constraining Russia's naval movements and turning the Baltic into a NATO-controlled lake. What does this mean for the world? Sweden's missile and submarine advancements threaten to encircle Russia from the air and sea. Their new long-range missile systems can paralyze Moscow's military, while their stealth submarines hide close to Russian shores, an invisible fist squeezing the heart of the Kremlin. And the scope grows wider. Swedish military collaborations with Ukraine are paving the way for an extraordinary transfer of advanced fighter jets. Up to 150 JAS-39 Gripen aircraft, more than many European nations' entire fleets. These jets, funded by frozen Russian assets, are transforming Ukraine into a fortress capable of striking deep behind enemy lines. Imagine Putin's shock knowing that the very funds he depended on are fueling the aircraft that threaten to destroy his military infrastructure. The Gripen, cheaper than fifth-generation fighters, is versatile enough to take off from rough airstrips, operating even under Russian air attacks. It's a direct challenge to Russia's aerial dominance. Sweden isn't stopping there. Its navy is preparing to introduce 4 massive frigates, its largest since the Cold War. Designed to challenge Putin's fleet openly, these ships are equipped with cutting-edge surface-to-air missiles like the Aster-30, ready to intercept Russian aircraft and missiles long before they approach Swedish waters. They will be integrated into NATO's missile defense system, turning the Baltic into a safe zone and impenetrable barrier from above and below. All these plans hinge on lessons learned on the brutal Ukrainian front. From armored vehicles like the CV-90, which have proven their resilience under fire, to the cutting-edge camouflage systems that make them invisible to reconnaissance drones, Swedish strategies are evolving in real-time war zones. The message is clear: the Baltic Sea is no longer a simple body of water. It is transforming into a battleground where Sweden's unstoppable rise threatens to confine and crush Russian ambitions. The question remains, how long can Putin's empire withstand this relentless encirclement? In a world where peace once reigned, a silent war now rages beneath the icy surface. Sweden's bold moves could redefine the balance of power and change the course of history forever. In Sweden's defense shift, passive air defenses against Russia's growing threats seem like suicide. The strategy flips everything, pushing their defense line right into enemy soil. Reports show Sweden targeting advanced missiles with a breathtaking 2,000-kilometer reach. Imagine the shock: what if Sweden could hit Moscow before Russia even thinks to strike? That terrifying reality is unfolding in the chilling Baltic waters. Picture the salty sting of the sea air, waves crashing like distant thunder as Sweden's missiles, those icy spears of fate, stretch their deadly arms. They don't just cover St. Petersburg's glittering spires, shadowed by cranes and the distant hum of cargo ships, but plunge into Moscow's beating heart, where streets pulse with exhaust fumes and urgent footsteps, disrupting logistics hubs stretched to the Ural Mountains' rugged crags, and silencing airbases from which mighty bombers roar into the skies, engines screaming like banshees. These weapons freeze Russia's core, paralyzing bases and vital links with the cold precision of a first blow or swift revenge if war erupts. Minister Johnson stands firm, his voice echoing through frost-laden chambers. Will Sweden sit idle while Russia's might bulges in 5 years? No, they vow to snuff out threats deep within Russia's borders, where forests whisper secrets and rivers growl with hidden dangers. Above, this aerial menace merges with an underwater tempest. The Baltic's shallow depths, a treacherous maze of salty currents, feel the chill seep into your bones. The ocean's murky embrace turned deadly for Russia's behemoths. Enter the A-26 Viking-class submarines, Swedish marvels gliding silent as phantoms. No nuclear heartbeats here, banishing that giveaway rumble, rendering them undetectable ghosts. Called the largest conventional subs without reactors, they harness air-independent propulsion, the Stirling engine by SOB creators, a groundbreaking thrust. Fueled by liquid oxygen and diesel, they lurk submerged for weeks, over 18 days, no need to breach with a snorkel gasping like a wounded beast. Sonar hunters strain futilely, mistaking them for the sea's own murmurs amid bubbling depths. In the Baltic's mere 60 meters of peril visualize cramped, dark voids where light fades, massive 170-meter Russian giants slumber clumsily, hulls scraping unseen threats, while the sleek 66-meter aliens prowl like wolves on the sandy floor, claws poised, waiting. The bow flashpoint strikes fear, a 1.5-meter multi-purpose port, unleashing torpedoes with a whoosh, smuggling elite troops to hostile shores under starless nights, skin tingling with anticipation, deploying unmanned underwater vehicles like silent sentinels. It sabotages Russia's lifeline veins, undersea cables humming with electric pulses, pipelines groaning under pressure, turning this sub into a floating espionage blade. For Russia's naval forces in Kaliningrad, this spells entrapment in shadowed ports. What hidden terror could emerge next, binding Sweden's iron grip under the waves? In these chilling Baltic depths, massive 170-meter Russian or American nuclear submarines struggle to maneuver. But the sleek 66-meter-long A-26 glides like a patient predator on the seabed, silently stalking its prey. And its most terrifying weapon? The multi-purpose hatch right at the bow. Now, imagine this hatch, a 1.5-meter-wide marvel. designed not just to launch torpedoes with a thunderous roar, but to unleash special forces onto hostile shores, deploying unmanned underwater vehicles like silent ghosts, and sabotaging Russia's vital seabed cables and pipelines. Feel the cold, metallic shiver as underwater currents brush against hulls, the acrid stench of leaking fuel from severed lines. This isn't just a warship, it's an intelligence hub and sabotage fortress. How does Sweden turn one boat into an empire changer? This edge turns strategy upside down, as Poland joins the fray. Through the Orca program, Poland announced plans to buy 3 A-26 submarines from Sweden to seal off Russia's naval bases in Kaliningrad, weaving an invisible underwater iron curtain across the Baltic. Saab's design, outpacing French, German, and South Korean rivals, controls both sides of this treacherous sea. Why the perfect match? Because now, the Russian fleet in Kaliningrad faces invisible trackers from 2 NATO nations, the instant it slips from port. This isn't mere commerce, it's a $2.5 billion chokehold on Russia's naval freedom in the Baltic. Can Moscow ships ever escape this aquatic trap? These grim details reveal Sweden's assault on Russia's heart. With missiles stretching 2,000 kilometers deep, while A-20 bottle up the Navy in frozen ports. Not defense, but a crushing encirclement from air and sea. The fallout? A military, economic, and diplomatic knockout. But Sweden goes further, bolstering its arsenal and forging Ukraine into Europe's top air power. Ongoing talks between Stockholm and Kiev hint at a game-changing deal, up to 150 Saab JAS-39 Gripen E fighter jets for Ukraine. Pause and absorb the scale. 150 jets, a fleet bigger than many European nations' entire air forces. The October agreement seals fourth-generation exports. Yet, the true bomb? Financing this beast. Sweden's defense minister Paul Janssen smirks, using frozen Russian assets to bankroll it. Turning Kremlin's seized billions into planes that humble Putin's army. With UK backing and allies, Russia's cash fuels the very weapons striking home. And Gripen E's low cost, outperforming 5th-gen F-35s, lets them launch from rough fields under attack. The ultimate counter to Russia's air dominance dreams. Isn't it poetic justice, your own money becoming your downfall? But the waves of change roll on. Sweden's Navy eyes additions, for massive frigates, the largest in 50 years. Ditching Visby-class corvettes, these behemoths challenge Russia on open seas. Talks with France suggest FDI-style defense intervention ships, armed with Aster 30 air defense missiles. Descending rotors hum, metal creaks under salty spray, as these floating fortresses patrol the Baltic. What terror for invaders! Intercepting Kaliningrad-launched anti-ship missiles and planes. Far from Swedish skies. Integrated into NATO's IAMD system, detecting threats the moment they take off. Sweden wields the long sword now. You thought the Baltic was neutral? It's morphing into an unpassable NATO dominion. But wait, will Russia's doctrine shatter first? Or does an unseen twist lurk in the shadows, one that flips the script entirely? Imagine this, a once neutral Nordic powerhouse, Sweden, shattering its tranquil facade on November 25, 2025, unleashing a tempest in the icy Baltic waters that shatters Moscow's deepest fears. No longer content with borders and diplomacy, it forges a lethal arsenal to pierce Russian soil, spanning 2,000 kilometers, with ghostly subs and skies choked by jets. What if I told you Sweden isn't just defending, it's poised to annihilate threats before they erupt? Shocking, isn't it? That quiet Scandinavian dream now dreams of domination, humbling Russia's might with its own seized wealth. The cold sting of betrayal lingers in the air, a sharp, metallic tang from frozen assets thawing into destruction. Can you feel the shiver of anticipation, the deep rumble of engines idling for war? Building on that, Sweden morphs Ukraine into an aerial giant, funneling up to 150 Saab, JAS-39, Gripen E fighters into Kiev's grasp, a fleet dwarfing many Europe's entire skies. That's not small potatoes, it's a monumental shift. Yet, the plot thickens, trap set for Vladimir Putin. What if Europe's elites turned Kremlin's ill-gotten billions against him, forging blitzes from seized spoils? Picture the uproar in Moscow's halls, faces flushing with rage at this clever reversal. Swedish Defense Minister Paul Jansson laid it bare, billions in frozen euros, trapped in European vaults, morphing into warbuds that shred Russian forces. He declared, with icy calm, explore export credits and immobilized Russian funds. Allied with Britain and partners, these euros fuel salvos aimed right back at Russia. The scent of treachery fills the air. Like smoke from suppressed vaults cracking open. You sense the tectonic shift, dominance inverting? Absolutely. But wait, is the sting just in air superiority? No, a twist looms, economic chessmate flips to naval thunder, waters stirring with hulking ships. Can Sweden drown Russia's edge in waves of steel? Hold your breath, the ocean's roar hints at engulfment. From that shocking economic ambush, where Putin's treasures finance 150 Gripen ES for Ukraine, resistance pulses anew. These 4th-gen jets, slimmer purse strings than 5th-gen F-35s, soaring from rough strips and punishing conditions, evade Russian aerial supremacy. Imagine the guttural whir of turbines defying drone swarms and missile volleys, Ukraine warding off assaults even as skies darken. It's fierce innovation, practical, deadly countermeasures against Kremlin doctrines. The tactile grip of control slips from Russian fingers, replaced by Swedish resolve's firm, unrelenting press. But the cascade swells beyond skies, does it cascade to seas? Indeed, spraying fury across waters. Swedish Navy gears for Titans, for colossal frigates, heftiest armed vessels since Cold War chills. Ditching coastal corvettes, they challenge open seas, confronting Russian fleets head-on. Talks with France's Johnson suggest French defense and intervention frigates FDI, or akin, infusing them. Laden with long-range shields, like Aster 30 interceptors, they loom as a floating bulwark. What erupts? Swedish bastions patrol Baltic depths, snaring Russian anti-ship barrages in Kaliningrad-launched planes ere they graze airspace. The salty spray stings skin. Waves crashing like distant thunder signaling siege. Though, a turn, these behemoths meld into NATO's Unified Air Missile Defense, IAMD, instant detection, jets ascending trigger alliance webs, Swedish longswords parrying blows. Is the ocean a NATO fortress now? The icy clutch of encirclement tightens, no escape for Kremlin's might. Imagine the icy grip of the Baltic Sea, where Sweden's new warships slice through frozen waves like silent predators. Defense Minister Johnson has been negotiating with France, hinting that these vessels will likely mirror French defense and intervention frigates, equipped with powerful Aster 30 missiles. What does this transformation truly unleash? Sweden now commands floating fortresses that dominate the heart of the Baltic. These massive frigates, the largest in half a century, intercept Russian missiles and planes from Kaliningrad long before they threaten Swedish skies. Their sharp hulls cut through salty spray, engines rumbling like distant thunder. Imagine the chill wind whipping across the deck, the metallic tang of sea air filling your lungs, as these behemoths enforce total control. Integrated into NATO's air and missile defense system, they ensure that every Russian launch over the Baltic triggers instant alerts, and swift retaliation from Sweden's armada. What if this ripple effect squeezes Russia from every angle? Picture Ukraine's skies buzzing with 150 Swedish fighter jets, fueled by seized Russian funds, a twisted irony turning enemy cash into weapons that humiliate Moscow. Explosions echo in the distance, acrid smoke staining the horizon, but these craft take off from rough runways, their roars defying artillery fire. Dispersed naval forces, eluding detection, tighten the vice from below, while overwhelming warships block the sea like an unbreakable wall. The Kremlin faces a nightmare, the Baltic as a lifeless gulf, no longer a passage but a trap. Yet, these strategies aren't born in silence, they're forged in the mud and mayhem of Ukraine. Sweden sharpens its edge there, dismantling Russia's outdated strategies. How does a armored beast like the CV-90 turn the tide? Ukrainian troops hail it as unbreakable, shrugging off drone strikes and shell impacts with a thud that shakes the earth. The scent of burned explosives lingers, but the vehicle's camouflage system cloaks it from view, invisibility bought with sweat and grit. It's durable, like an unyielding tractor, yet precise as a guided star. One commander whispered, veins pulsing, that it weathers hell itself. But seek to uncover this stealth, thermal eyes and satellites hunt heat signatures relentlessly. What's hidden beneath the digital shroud, waiting to strike? Could Sweden's gamble crush numbers with cunning? Russia's hordes crumble before clever tech, drones faltering like insects against a flame. The Barracuda system paints war machines in deceptive patterns, tricking sensors into blindness. Feel the tense silence before sorties, heart pounding against cold metal grips. But as alliances deepen, a shocking betrayal looms. Is this the end of Russia's northern shadow? What dark secret will erupt from the fog next? In the chaos of modern warfare, even the toughest armored vehicles can't escape detection. Imagine a vehicle so resilient, it withstands direct hits from drones and tank shells. Yet, the real revolution is not its armor but its invisibility cloak, the Barracuda mobile camouflage system. This isn't just paint or a net. It's a cutting-edge fabric that vanishes heat signatures and disrupts radar detection. Ukrainian crews driving the CV-90 report that, thanks to this advanced camouflage, their vehicles appear 70% less visible to Russian thermal imaging. To infrared sensors, they resemble cold stones, mere shadows in the vast battlefield. To radar, they turn into ghostly phantoms, silent, unseen, untouchable. Russian artillery cannot target what they cannot see. And that's precisely the point. It forces Russian soldiers into perilous close encounters, where they risk detection before they even get within firing range. By the time they get close enough to engage, these stealthy vehicles are already unleashing their 40mm firepower. This isn't just a tactical advantage, it's a game-changer with catastrophic implications for Russia. These technological marvels are part of a broader strategy that signals Sweden's awakening from 2 centuries of neutrality. Now, the nation stands ready to exact retribution against Vladimir Putin's miscalculations. Sweden has unveiled a formidable arsenal of missiles capable of striking 2,000 kilometers deep into Russian territory, ghost submarines that enclose the Baltic from beneath, and an air force of 150 fighter jets, funded by frozen Russian assets, poised for attack. While Russia aimed to curb NATO's expansion, the outcome is a Viking army armed with superior technology, ready to turn the tide. In this new reality, the Northern Front is no longer a passive border zone but a strategic battlefield, more a dead end for Russia than a threat. The question remains, how will the Kremlin respond to this silent, invisible siege? And what moves are left in their arsenal when they face a power no longer content to wait? Sweden's bold military overhaul, financed by those seized Russian funds, has turned the tables on Moscow. What was meant to halt NATO's advance has instead ignited a fierce, tech-savvy Viking force, itching for payback right on the border. For Putin's regime, the northern horizon looks like a looming wall of steel and shadow, a strategic dead end. Imagine the Kremlin's iron grip, starting to slip. Vladimir Putin faces a crossroads, his deck of cards thinning fast after these Swedish gambits. For years, Russia paraded its nuclear might, a thunderous shield against the world. Now, it's ensnared in a gritty, conventional clash, where Sweden's sleek tech and cunning plans choke off its boasts. The air hums with tension, the scent of salt water mingling with diesel fumes from distant patrols. You can almost feel the chill of the Baltic wind, as it whispers of impending siege. How will the Kremlin dodge this Norse encirclement? Russia's doctrine, long built on repelling foes with the S-400 missiles and posh deterred threats in Kaliningrad. But Sweden flips the script, those 2,000-kilometer range strikes and stealthy subs, transforming that guarded enclave into a suffocating trap. Russian brass knows it, their boots echo hollowly in barracks, as cold reality sets in. In any flare-up, the tight Baltic gateway slams shut, courtesy of Sweden's I-26 subs and Poland's flanking ships. Why do these sea wolves feel so unstoppable? Because the Baltic fleet, once Putin's prized asset, now idles like a rusting hulk in a NATO-controlled pool. Fuel tanks empty, engines silenced, the vast navy reduced to echoes of past glory. But there's a deeper sting. Russia's factories grind to a halt. They're funneling every ounce, every microchip and spark of engineering genius, into the Ukrainian quagmire. While Sweden forges those whisper-quiet Stirling engines for air-independent subs. Russia scrambles just to patch up 80s-era vessels, slapping on fresh paint to fake modernization. The humiliation builds, a bitter taste in the air, as Soviet relics buzz noisily with 40-year-old diesels. Facing space-age predators, you can't bluff power with relics that rattle like old tin cans. So, militarily outmatched. Putin reaches for the shadows. But what desperate, unseen strikes will he unleash next, in this game of asymmetric brinkmanship? The wind picks up, carrying distant rumbles, hinting at moves that could shatter alliances or ignite unseen fronts. What dark ace remains in his sleeve, as the Vikings tighten their noose? Moscow acknowledges a crushing military deadlock against Sweden's cutting-edge innovations. Putin shifts to clandestine maneuvers to fracture undersea cables and pipelines. Can you imagine the Kremlin's bold moves crumbling so spectacularly that they forged their own icy trap? Russia's covert operations defy the winds of progress, but what's the chilling payback lurking beneath the surface? At 300 characters long, this query exposes a web of desperation. Moscow, fully cognizant of the insurmountable challenge in direct combat against Sweden, probes into covert threats against submerged data lines and energy conduits via innocuous vessels. The clash evokes a boxer pummeled and resorting to underhanded tugs during the judge's blind spots. Cool salt spray coats the decks, while rusty hums vibrate through outdated machinery, a stale mix of diesel and neglect clinging to the air. Russian naval forces jeopardize civil flights by sabotaging GPS beacons. This tactic reeks not of might, but of frayed ends and desperate grabs. Rough tremors course through rippling waves as clandestine boats lurk in the fog-shrouded depths. Is this the hallmark of naval fragility fused with obsolete gear? Ultimately, Putin's decree for Ukraine's conquest aimed to etch his name as a territorial titan in annals. Yet, the northern repercussions? A self-inflicted seal on the Baltic Sea, Russia's vital artery for 3 centuries. Crisp Nordic winds carry the sharp bite of irony, blended with the earthy scent of pine forests awakening. Russia's provocation tumbled Sweden's veil of impartiality like discarded armor. Beneath it pulses a lethal Viking arsenal, sleek and unyielding, that Russia scrambles to confront. Generals in Moscow pore over charts, their fingers tracing not mere alliance lines, but a polar dread birthed from their machinations, now unstoppable. Can you feel the weighty stillness in dim-lit rooms, ink pens scratching feudal counterplays? Putin sought to repel NATO from his frontiers. In reprisal, he reels in a barrage of Swedish projectiles homing on Moscow, with spectral vessels hemming in vital harbors. This stands as the pinnacle of geopolitical misstep in modern lore, and the toll appears destined for ordinary Russians, as production lines seize and pay packets dwindle. What's more, the taste of bile rises as factories echo void, touch-revealing grimy machines gathering dust in neglected bays. A seismic twist unfolds. Far from halting NATO's tide, Russia's gambit ignited a Viking resurgence, transforming passive watchers into formidable foes. This paradox didn't just alter borders, it sculpted a nightmare from their very shadows, where the prey becomes the predator in an unforeseen reversal. The salty decay of decayed ambitions meets the fresh gust of reinvented strength, leaving one to ponder, has this echo forever altered the seismic shift of power?